Good evening to everyone in the gallery and those joining us online this evening. My name is Councillor Pradeep Tiwari and I would like to welcome everyone to the October 2025 Council meeting. I declare the meeting open at 6:31 p.m. Maribyrnong City Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boon Wurrung Bunurong peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pays its respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Welcome everyone in the gallery. I remind everyone to switch phones off or turn to silent. I advise the gallery that this meeting is being recorded and will be available on Council's website. All care is taken to maintain your privacy, however your presence may be recorded. In accordance with Council's governance rules, meetings may not be photographed, filmed or recorded without the consent of the Chief Executive Officer. I advise there are no apologies for tonight's meetings. Councillors, are there any leave of absence requests? In accordance with Local Government Act 2020, do any councillors have a conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items? We'll move on to suspension of standing orders. I call for a councillor to move a motion to suspend standing orders for two items. Firstly, to acknowledge the passing of Walter Hopkins OAM, and secondly, to receive a presentation from Ireland Brown Constructions, the builder of the Civic Precinct and Community Hub. I call for a councillor to Councillor Lam. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Yengi. I put the motion to a vote. All right, we'll just vote by hand. Put the motion to a vote. Yeah, motion is carried. So, on behalf of Council, I would like to formally acknowledge the passing of Walter Hopkins OAM on 19 September 2025. It was in 1934, at the age of 10, that Wal joined the Kurriwarra District Scouts in Hyde Street, Footscray, igniting a lifelong passion surpassed only by his love for his wife and children. 3 years later, while still a teenager, he became patrol leader, advancing to group leader by 1952, a role he held for 25 years, becoming Assistant District Commissioner. His commitment to scouting over 8 decades was recognised with the awarding of the Order of Australia. Even after retiring, he continued to serve as Scout Quartermaster for Kurriwarra District for many years. Known for his "I can fit that in" attitude, Wal also dedicated himself to the YMCA, serving on its Board of Management alongside his scouting commitments. This led to his role as Chairman of the Coordinating Committee of Footscray, fostering his enduring relationship with Maribyrnong City Council. He was also twice honoured as a Citizen of the Year at Council's Civic Awards, first in 1984, then again in 2008. A humble man from humble beginnings, Wal had given generously to his community throughout his lifetime. Vale Walter Hopkins. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Lam.
Thank you, Mayor. So a little bit more detail about Mr. Walter Hopkins, OAM. He was born on the 15th of May 1924 in Yarraville, and the elder of 3 male brothers, born to Mr. Walter Sr. and Mrs. Dorothy Hopkins. He attended Geelong Road Primary School and then Footscray Technical School. As an ex-student, Mr. Hopkins in later year organizing an annual reunion for fellow classmates and support by Victoria University. He was a very good sportsman, playing a range of sport, including football and cricket. He married to Mrs. Evelyn for 70 years. He had 4 children, Julie, Neville, Sue, and Greg. I think they're all here tonight, and grandchildren, great-grandchildren here. Thank you very much for being here today. And he lived all his life in the city of Maribyrnong, which is West Footscray. where he raised his family. He was building himself a house under supervision of the registered builder, and due to the tractors shortage post-World War II. His employment, that his apprenticeship fitter and turner, to a Possum Ltd, where he worked his entire working life there. The company changed name first as ACL and then Repco Ltd. During the war year, that he volunteers as an air warden, as his employment was a protected industry, which makes him ineligible for active service. He's organizing a number of social events for the benefit of the employee and their family. Retired as a warehouse manager. With his community involvement in the Maribyrnong, in Maribyrnong area, scouting for his, at the age of 15, Mr. Hopkins and his future brother-in-law obtaining a special provision to take in responsibility for the first Food Trade Scouts group, and I know some of them here tonight too. As existing leader, was overseas serving the armed force. Mr. Hopkins serving as Group Scout Master for many years before becoming a Quartermaster for Kariwara Scouting District, and then Assistant District Commissioner to the Scouting Hotley region. Post his retirement, actively involved in the Scout. Mr. Hopkins, along with other ex-Scout and their partner, become a Dead Army. Assistant at the Scout camp and other Scout activity through the provision of the food van built by the group for this purpose. He was also involved in many council running special events and very successful. He's also, Mr. Hopkins, becoming a VFL field umpire in 1948 and can claim 356 games across the most country town in Victoria and several interstate as well. So Mr. Hopkins was also involved in planning and conducting social events for umpire and their family. After retiring from VFL, Mr. Hopkins took up the role as umpire advisor for the Food Trade District Delegated in 1964 for 9 years. His family was actively engaged in YMCA from beginning in the West Food Trade in 1959. Mr. Hopkins became involved in the Activity Committee and the Board of Directors, which is later serving a chairperson. In his role as a board member, Mr. Hopkins was involved in the range of projects to enhance the life of people, for the young people, to the Hopkins community as a whole. So in 1990, Mr. Hopkins appointed as a chairperson of Food Trade Council 100-year Celebration Committee. Talking about 100-year celebration, I myself, when I was a mayor, I delivered a certificate for him, congratulating him for 100 years, acknowledging congratulations to him, and he's very alert, very humble man. This was a major contribution as involved in the broad range of activity and major events throughout the year. He has previously been involved with earlier community planning committee and activity run by council. Always ready to the land and eagle hands, is always help and humble. His recognition, Mr. Hopkins, was very honored and proud of representing and contributing to his beloved community in Food Trade in recognition of his many endeavors. So he was a recipient of significant number of awards. Only a few listed here I would like to share with you. It's the Order of Australia Medal, OAM, for all his work for the youth and with the Scout and the YMCA from the community. Twice as a Citizen of the Year for Maribyrnong City Council. Silver Kangaroo Scouting Australian Highest Honour, inaugural Community Aluminium Award, Victoria University, and life membership of the VFL Umpire Association. Food Trade District Football League, later legend stated the converted Food Trade YMCA. His legacy is a leader of participants for the better good of his community. I'm sure that our family and all the community here are very proud of his achievement and his support for all the community, and even he's 101 years old, but it's a great loss for the community, for all age people. We look at him as a role model and a man with always friendly, smiling all the time. I remember when he nearly 100 years old, we have citizenship at the end, and he came and always sitting there. So thank you so much for the family, and thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. Councillor Yengi. Councillor Lam, can you just push off your mic?
Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. I'll just make this very brief. Hello, Walter's family. I just wanted to offer my condolences for your loss for Walter. I didn't know him that well, but I know he was a revered member of our community, and not only was he selfless, but he had a real passion for wanting to see positive outcomes for our community. So just wanted to offer my condolences and thank you all for being here, but also thank Walter for all the contributions that he's made to creating the fabric that is our community today.
Thank you, Councillor Yengi. Usually don't do this, but is there any members of Walter's family, anyone that would like to come up and say a few words? You don't have to. I'm just opening the invitation if anyone wants to. Yes, please. Please do. Please. No.
I really, on behalf of the family, I really want to thank very much the City of Maribyrnong CEO and councillors for your support to our family after Dad's passing. Dad would have loved to have had his funeral at the YMCA. Unfortunately, the YMCA was being pulled down. So council offered to have it here in the new building downstairs. And I really want to show our appreciation for your support during that time. Dad was a passionate Footscrayite, if you like. He spent all his life in Footscray, never lived anywhere else, and was very, very committed to anything he undertook, which made him an incredibly busy person. I'd also, before I forget, like to thank Council very much for the beautiful flowers that were delivered on behalf of Council for Dad's passing as well. We appreciate very much the acknowledgement that Dad is receiving, and we're very proud of him. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We'll now move on to the second item, which is the presentation of plaque by Island Brown Constructions, and I invite Ben Bakulsi on behalf of Island Brown Constructions to present a plaque to the Council, myself and the Chief Executive Officer in recognition of the construction of the Civic Precinct and Community Hub.
All right. Thank you for inviting us out tonight to what is almost your first year in this facility. So when we start out on a project, there are so many unknowns. There are challenges that will come up along the way indefinitely. But what makes a project successful, in my mind, is an enduring trust between a client, its builder, and its designers. And it is oddly rare to have all three on a project in this industry, but this project for us was one of those instances, and really that come from the culture that existed within this organisation at Maribyrnong. There is a sort of openness and a trust that is given to us as a contractor, which is oddly in our industry something that's occasionally rare, and what that provided us was an environment where we could open up and talk openly about the challenges that were occurring on this project site, and this building we're all standing in tonight is one of those. This year, recently, our organisation received recognition from the Master Builders Victoria. We won an award for the best commercial building between $30 and $80 million, which is a tricky one to snag. but we did it in the end, and we thought it would be valuable to come here tonight and provide council, Celia, and the broader council with a copy of the plaque, just in recognition of your contribution to this journey. We enjoyed it. It was sort of fun coming here every day and working with you and your team in Lauren. So we just wanted to say thank you. So here's the plaque.
Thank you for the entire team. I'd like to make a special mention for Ben, who's actually been nominated for the Young Builder of the Year Award, and also, as I've just heard, for the National Builder of the Year Award as well. So congratulations to your entire team there. So we'll now resume standing orders, and I call for a councillor to move a motion to resume standing orders. Councillor Yengi. And I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. I'll just wait for the gallery to leave just a second. We'll put the motion to a vote. Just by hand is fine, everyone. Yep, the motion is carried. Are we transmitting live again? Yeah, good. That's good. We'll now move on to public question time. Public question time is managed in accordance with Council's governance rules. Members of the public can submit a maximum of 3 questions prior to the commencement of the meeting. As Chair, I will decide who answers the question. Public question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to an extension. Council has received a total of 38 questions. We've got less this time. The first question is asked by Jess Barrett, who asks the following questions. Question 1, noting the response to the question from Jess Barrett from the meeting on the 19th of August 2025, the Director, Customer and Corporate Services responded by advising Council does not hold a direct contract with HP. Council engages suppliers under the MAV telecommunications contract number NPN 1.18, where HP is listed as one of the panel contractors. The MAV panel is valid until 30 April 2028. Can Council confirm whether the MAV telecommunications contracted NPN 1.18 allows Council to procure ICT devices from other brands in addition to Hewlett-Packard? I'll hand it over to Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Lucas, to answer this, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So yes, Council procures computing equipment from various suppliers listed on both the MAV panel and the State Purchase Contract or SPC panel. This is a collaborative procurement arrangement allowing Council to source equipment from any of the registered panel suppliers.
Thank you. And the second question is, if yes to the first question around other brands, which brands are available on the MAV supplier panel? Back to you, please, Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So there are 26 IT-related registered suppliers on the MAV panel and a further 6 IT-related registered on suppliers on the SPC panel. Maribyrnong Council purchased computer-related equipment from a range of those various suppliers on that panel.
Thank you. And the third question is, what percentage of the current Council end-user device asset fleet is HP? Back to you, Lucas, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So approximately 75% of Council's current end-user device fleet is HP. However, this is likely to vary significantly over time as technology and business needs evolve, as well as the cost of purchasing new equipment changes.
Thank you, Lucas. Move on to the submission number 2, which is asked by Pontua Emi, who asks the following questions. Question 1, what actions is Council currently taking to support local businesses who are experiencing daily issues with homelessness, such as people using shop fronts as toilets, harassing staff, customers, or leaving waste around premises? I'll hand it to Director of Planning and Environment Services, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, Council's working with local community service providers and Victoria Police to address the needs and challenges associated with vulnerable people in Central Footscray through a coordinated outreach, increased local laws patrols, targeted cleaning and the appointment of the Footscray Revitalisation lead role at Council.
Thank you. The second question is, will the new skate park development in Madden Square include public toilets? And if not, can Council consider adding them to reduce the need for people to use private properties? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The upgrade of the Madden Square does not include public toilets as part of the scope. However, we are currently reviewing our public toilet strategy and can consider the merits of this proposal through that.
Thanks, Mike. And the third question is, can Council increase or prioritise security patrols, check-ins for businesses in Central Footscray that are struggling with safety concerns related to homelessness and antisocial behaviour? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. The Council is already operating a 6-month security program in Central Footscray to support local laws officers, increase visibility and respond to the safety and amenity concerns raised by traders and the community. The program works alongside Victoria Police and the local outreach services to ensure people in need are connected to support while helping businesses feel safer and more supported. In addition, an upgrade to the existing CCTV infrastructure, 55 cameras, is also underway.
Thank you, Mike. Moving on to submission 3. Thomas Young asks the following questions. Question 1, the Maribyrnong Bicycle Strategy 2020 to 2030 plan called for 7 projects featuring protected off-road paths to be completed by 2025. As we near the end of 2025, how are these projects tracking? And I'll hand it to Director of Infrastructure Services, Patrick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council has been actively working on planning, developing and delivering cycling projects through a range of programs. While the Bicycle Strategy 2020 to 2030 has set out highly ambitious targets to deliver these within 5 years, the impacts of COVID-19, along with rapid changes in the way the community travel, technology and some unprecedented work from home trends has significantly led to reprioritisation and influenced project delivery timelines and short-term funding priorities. Recognising this shift, Council is renewing its integrated transport strategy and in collaboration with stakeholders such as the Department of Transport and Planning is assessing how these changes have affected cycling trends. The implementation of new cycling infrastructure as part of the Westgate Tunnel project and the pop-up bike lane trials across the city will also impact the priority for bicycle network development in Maribyrnong.
Thank you. And question 2 is, with the current integrated transport strategy being developed, superseding the 2012 ITS and presumably the 2020 to 2030 bicycle plan, both of which appear to have had minimal implementations, what confidence can stakeholders and ratepayers have that its recommendations will come into fruition? Back to you, Patrick, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So the new strategy provides an opportunity to review current and long-term infrastructure and advocacy priorities for the city, including the management of Council's network of local roads and footpaths and arterial roads and the public transport services which are managed by the Department of Transport and Planning. To guide its delivery, the strategy will be supported by a detailed action plan or plans with clear key performance indicators and a regular reporting framework back to Council to provide transparency, accountability and measurable progress over time. A walking and cycling action plan is part of the new strategy, to guide future priorities and project delivery with clearer alignment to current and emerging community needs and expectations.
Thank you, Patrick. We'll move on to submission for 4 all the way to 10. And Council has received 7 submissions of the same questions from Shifra Bluestein, Sophie Rudolph, Alice Noth, Sally Thompson, David Gonzalez, Isa Jordan and Oscar Martin, requesting a response from each councillor. Under clause 52.9 of Council's governance rules, these questions have been grouped and will only be read out once. Preamble. Footscray Community Responses submission to Council's draft Community Amenity Local Laws 2025 submission made recommendations structured around 4 principles. 1. Inclusion, equality and non-discrimination in public life. 2. Dignity and protection for people experiencing homelessness and poverty. 3. Rights to expression, participation and political communication. 4. Accountability, proportionate enforcement and rights-based governance. Council rejected all FCR's recommendations. Question 1. Do you support or oppose these 4 principles for socially just and human rights compliant local laws? Would any councillor like to answer that? Councillor Thomas?
Yes, I do. And I mean, I've got some responses to the other questions, so I don't know whether you want to read them all out first and just give one kind of response. But yes, I support those 4 principles.
Do you want me to read the other questions out now? Yeah. Are all councillors okay if I read the next 2 questions out? All right, I'll proceed to reading out the next 2 questions. Question 2 is, will you move amendments to Council's draft Community Amenity Local Laws 2025 to give effect to these principles in line with FCR's submission? And third question is, community members have observed worrying practices in the operation of the Security Guards program that suggest potential non-compliance with human rights and other legal requirements, implementation protocols that contradict state government policy, and selective and discriminatory enforcement of bylaws against certain population groups and for certain behaviour only. In light of those concerns, do you support the extension of the security program, and will you vote for the program to continue when the 6-month trial ends? Back to you, Councillor Thomas first.
Sorry, thank you. Yes, so to question 2, I think that if people have had a look at the current council agenda, they'll notice that there have been some changes already made to the local law since the draft was circulated and finalised earlier. Some changes that I had, asked for, and the officers were able to make those changes to what I probably broadly term the approach that we are taking within the local law. And for example, there's an additional section up front about how the local law will be enforced, which focuses on fostering community trust, on natural justice and fairness. Some of those, I guess, values or principles that Footscray Community Response, mentioned in their first question. In relation to the third question, I think if members of the community observe the security guards operating outside of their remit, then they should contact their ward councillor. They can contact all councillors. They can email into the general council email address so that we're aware of it, because we'd like to be aware of that. As the councillor, I think I ended up moving the final motion adopted by council in July, just in relation to the 6-month trial. I asked for the word trial to be removed, so it's a 6-month program, and all council has adopted is a 6-month program. There was no extension included that in the motion that council adopted, so it is a 6-month program, and it will finish in sometime in February next year. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any other councillors?
Sure.
Councillor Pereira.
At the risk of just repeating quite a bit of that, I think that essentially the values that were highlighted are just good for governance generally, and we endeavour to embed those in all our strategic documents and operational processes. It's a continuous process of improving that and working on that, and the local laws is part of that process. We've had lots of back and forth around them, and hopefully we're getting them closer, but there's an opportunity to review them in 12 months as well, so there's still a chance for us to continue to evolve them, and so it's a good chance now to test them and see how they suit our community going forward, especially vulnerable members. Part of the motion that was put up included the opportunity for the Your City, Your Voice page, and of course, as always, the invitation to email councillors about anything that you see, anything that you're concerned about, or any other ideas that you've had. I think that there are lots of other more effective ways of addressing the challenges and opportunities in Footscray, and we're looking at exploring all of those. I think councils feeling like they need to adopt security programs is really just responsibility and cost shifting to local government, and what we actually need is a lot more investment in housing, infrastructure renewal, mental health, AOD services, and yeah, we'll certainly be looking at partnerships with other levels of government to ensure that we can have a really positive space in central Footscray.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Yengi.
Sure. I'm going to have a go at responding, seeing as these questions have just been raised recently. In response to question number 1, the answer is yes. With regards to question 2, and I will try not to repeat too much of what Councillor Thomas and Per have already said, but per Councillor Thomas's comments earlier, we have made some changes to the local law, so I wouldn't say that Council has rejected all the recommendations. We did make some amendments based on some of those recommendations and following some really robust conversations amongst us councillors. What we've also done is we've highlighted, so the principles that have been mentioned above, we've highlighted these, so they were within the local laws, the drafts that went out for public consultation, but I think in acknowledgement of the feedback that we received, we've tried to highlight these principles by adding in preambles in certain areas or putting in explanatory notes, etc., just to call out these principles a lot more clearer as well. So yeah, people will be able to see those amendments. With regards to, and I think there is an amended motion going through tonight as part of tonight's conversation later on as well in relation to this local law. So I guess that's kind of proof that we've made some amendments there. With regards to the security, just to reiterate what Councillor Bernadette Thomas said earlier, is I think it's really important for community members, if they if they observe any worrying practices, to reach out to us. I, for one, thus far haven't received any feedback around any of these worrying practices, but I have received some really positive feedback from a lot of the traders around the Footscray area who have been really thankful about the security guards and our local laws officers patrolling around and supporting them, particularly with respect to safety issues in front of all their shops, etc. So again, just really keen to reiterate, if there are any concerns that the community shares, that they reach out to us or our officers and we can touch base on this. Is that 3 questions?
Thank you, Councillor Yengi. Any other councillors? Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Semra.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what my fellow councillors have mentioned. I think, if there are observations around non-compliance, it is very concerning, and please reach out to, any one of us councillors or officers. There are processes in place, to deal with things like this. When it comes to the security guards per se, they have no authority to ask for identification, move people along. So it's important to make that clear. And we have heard from many members of the community around the importance of safety from traders and from local community. And it's very, very important to us that anything that we do is people-centered, that is supported through human rights frameworks and ensuring that it abides by our own policies. So, and in terms of the amendments, those amendments have been made. Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. And I just note we've just touched the time, so with the consent of Council, I wish to propose an extension to public question time of 15 minutes. Councillors, do I have your consent? Thank you. We'll now continue with public questions. Thank you for that, Councillor Semra. Was there any other councillors in relation to that submission? Thank you. We'll move on to the next submission, submission 11. Steve Corey asks the following questions. Question 1, can Council please clarify what consultation or discussions have taken place between the State Government and Maribyrnong Council regarding the proposed activity centre developments and rezoning plans for West Footscray? I'll hand it to Director of Planning and Environment. Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, the State Government has discussed with an informed Council and its officers on the planned activity centres during various phases of the engagement, which commenced in February 2025. But I would add that our engagement as a Council on this program is very similar to the engagement that's been available to all in the community.
Thanks, Mike. And second question, can Council confirm whether any current councillors or council officers have a conflict of interest in relation to the proposed rezoning areas, including personal ownership or business interest in properties located within the core activation or high density zones? Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been no conflict of interest declared by any council officers or councillors in relation to the Activity Centre program.
Thank you. And question 3, will Council reaffirm its commitment to the 2018 updated 2022 West Footscray Strategic Neighbourhood Plan, which clearly sets a maximum building height of 6 stories along Barclay Street and was developed through extensive community consultation? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Council maintains its support for the endorsed West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan 2018 and its preferred building heights.
Thanks. We'll move on to submission 12. Ming Kang Chen asks the following questions. Question 1, under the State Government's activity centres for West Footscray, what is Council's position on the proposed plan for Barclay Street that ignores all of the height limits and neighbourhood amenity provisions endorsed by Council and residents in the West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan for 4 to 6 storey apartments along Barclay Street? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Council officers have identified inconsistencies on building heights and other issues between the Council-adopted West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan and the State Government's Activity Centre program. Council officers will provide a submission for Council review and endorsement at the next City Development Delegated Committee on the 28th of October 2025. When adopted, this submission will be lodged with the State Government for their consideration. Thank you, Mike.
Question 2, has the Council inputted into receiving modelling for what the State Government predicts will actually be built in the Seddon to Tottenham Activity Centre by 2050? Much of this land was recently developed Banbury Village Central West and or in the process of being developed 501 receptions to Woolworths, apartments on the corner of Hocking and Cross Street, etc. So is realistically uneconomical to redevelop it as per State Government's proposals, which would imply that the modelling is reliant on large apartment towers on Barclay Street to compensate. Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council has not been provided with all the background documents and supporting analysis on matters such as building heights, housing growth and capacity of each proposed activity centre. Council's officers have identified concerns with the State Government's plan for increased building heights and housing for the selected areas. We will provide a submission for Council review and endorsement at the next CDDC meeting on the 28th of October, and when adopted, this submission will be lodged with the State Government for their consideration.
Thanks, Mike. And third question is, do any councillors hold a conflict of interest, e.g. financially benefit from a rezoning of the land in the Middle Footscray to Tottenham activity centres due to the increase in allowable heights proposed by the program? I'm specifically requesting under section 123 3 of the Local Government Act 2020. So this includes the councillor themselves, a family member, a body corporate, where the councillor or their spouse is a member of the governing body, an employer of the councillor or to whom the councillor is an agent, contractor, consultant, a business partner, beneficiary under trust, or where the councillor has received a disclosable gift. Back to you, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. There's been no conflict of interest declared by any council officers or councillors in relation to the Activity Centre program.
Thank you, and I'll probably just add a line in this. I believe I'm the only councillor in that ward, so these questions might be being directed to me, but even if they're not, I'm happy to answer. I have no conflict of interest or anything to do with the Activity Centre. So.
Mayor, sorry, I just wanted to, could I just...
Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I know that there's a lot of interest at the moment now in sort of towards the end of the consultation process that's the state government has been conducting, and I think I just want to reassure the community that council officers have been working really hard on the information that we do have. At some certain points in the process, we had the same sort of level of information that the community had, which was fairly minimal, to say the least. Councillors as a group have met with officers from the Department of Transport and Planning. We've provided a lot of feedback around the fact that Council has done over the past few years a lot of work on the West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan and the Seddon Neighbourhood Plan in collaboration with our community. Those two documents have been endorsed by Council, and we have, I guess, pushed the department to incorporate the content of those documents in their decision making. But of course, it's not Council's process. We're not running the process. We are just one of the parties to the process, or one of the stakeholders, in the same way that the community is. It's probably fair to say that what we're finding is that our feedback to date hasn't really made a dent in changes or dramatic changes to the approach that the state government is making. So we're still seeing some of those higher height limits than are listed in our two relevant neighbourhood plans. So I just want, I guess, the community to be confident that both Council as a group and the Council officers are doing everything they can to provide information to the department on behalf of the community, especially where we know that what the community has told us they want in their neighbourhoods, and we'll keep doing that. As the Director said at the CDDC, the development meeting next week, the full submission will be presented to Council for endorsement, and then if that's endorsed, it'll be sent off to the department after that. So I do encourage people to kind of tune into that one as well, or have a look online, because they'll get the full submission. But I also encourage people to, keep sending in their feedback to the department, because I know that some people have sort of been caught out on this and have only just really found out about it.
Unfortunately, we don't have a process to allow a question into this. We're happy for you to email any questions. I
might go to send us an email, we can respond to you.
Yeah, we'll definitely reply, and in a timely manner. So, yeah. So, Thomas, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. And we can make any emails available to you after this meeting if you'd like, or you can... No, that's fine, thank you. Submission 13, moving on to submission 13. Fadullah Yusuf asked the following questions. Council's annual reports disclose the CEO's remuneration only within the key management personnel KMP bands, without explicitly identifying which band applies to the CEO. When compared with neighbouring councils, Maribyrnong CEO remuneration equates to approximately $4 per resident per year, which is higher on a per capita basis than both Moonee Valley City Council $3.22 and Brimbank City Council $1.95 to $2. This raises clear questions of proportionality, especially when considered alongside Council's annual decisions on rate increases. Could Council please explain the process by which annual rate increases are decided, including question 1, what factors are considered when determining the recommended rate increase each year? And I'll go to Director of Customer and Corporate Services, Lucas, to answer this, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So firstly, the Chief Executive Officer's confidential contract of employment outlines specific matters pertaining to remuneration and any proposed increases which are reviewed annually by the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Committee and subsequently endorsed by Council. This is a standard practice across all Melbourne councils. The committee also receives independent advice from industry expert to assist in measuring performance and assessing market comparisons on value. The CEO's performance is assessed against a range of criteria set by the Council as the employer and considers risk, customer satisfaction, financial sustainability and performance, staff engagement and a competitive market analysis. The roles and function of a local government Chief Executive Officer are complex. Maribyrnong has a lower population than two examples provided. However, Council must still provide a suite of services that meet the needs of the community for which the Chief Executive Officer is responsible. Rates are not tied. There's no relationship between the rates which is actually set by the Commission and the CEO contract.
Thank you, Lucas. And question 2, how Council balances these factors against executive remuneration, population size and community satisfaction results? And back to you, Lucas, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, the Chief Executive Officer's total remuneration package is based on a number of key considerations, including, but not limited to, employment market factors and key performance indicators, the Chief Executive Officer's experience and expertise, and Chief Executive Officer's salary industry benchmarking to ensure Council remains competitive and retentive at the senior executive level. Community satisfaction is considered as part of the assessment, and the latest community survey shows equal highest levels of community satisfaction for the last 20 years.
Thank you, Lucas. And question 3, whether Council intends to provide clearer explanation to residents in future budgets or annual reports about the link between rate increases, service delivery and governance costs, such as CEO remuneration. And back to you, please, Lucas.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, Council already complies with its Chief Executive Officer remuneration disclosure obligations and does so in a manner consistent with Melbourne local councils.
Thank you, Lucas. So we're moving on to submission 14. Greg Oakford asks the following questions. Question 1, what level of assessment and modelling is Council undertaking to ensure the state government's proposed community centre and surrounding developments with building heights of 8, 10 and 12 stories properly consider impacts such as overshadowing on existing low-rise residential areas and nearby public spaces like McDougall Reserve? And I'll go back to Director of Planning and Environment Services, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council's officers have undertaken 3D modelling and other detailed assessments on the proposed building heights of 6 to 12 stories in each of the activity centres. Significant impacts have been identified as a result of the increased heights, including overshadowing on open spaces, streets and sensitive residential interfaces.
Thank you, Mike. Question 2. Does Council share community concerns regarding neighbourhood character and amenity in relation to the proposed building heights? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Council officers have identified that the proposed activity centres will significantly impact sensitive residential interfaces and areas that are protected with neighbourhood character overlays.
Thank you. And question 3, is there potential for Council to advocate for a more balanced build outcome in the range of 4 to 6 stories? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, Council officers will recommend Council to advise the State Government to lower the proposed building heights consistent with the adopted Seddon Neighbourhood Plan and the West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan, which set out 4 to 6 stories.
Thank you, Mike. And just before I move on to the next submission, we've just reached time, so with the consent of Council, I wish to propose a further extension of public question time of 15 minutes. Councillors, do I have your consent? Thank you. We'll now continue with the public questions. Submission 15, question by Kath Cooney, who asks the following questions. As a resident in Hewitt Avenue, backing up against the Alan Mance business, I bought my property with the understanding that and development along Barclay Street would be only up to 6 stories. Can this now be changed? Back to you, please, Mike, to answer this.
Thank you, Mayor. The State Government's Activity Centre program proposes building heights up to 12 stories on Barclay Street. Council officers have identified inconsistencies on building heights and other issues between the Council-adopted West Footscray Neighbourhood Plan and the State Government's Activity Centre program. Council officers will provide a submission for review and endorsement at the next CDDC meeting, and when adopted, this submission will be lodged with the state. But specifically in relation to can this now be changed, it really is up to the state government as to whether or not they choose to listen to the concerns of the council in their submission.
So can I just ask you on that, Mike, is that saying that we're not supporting the 12 stories, or what are the inconsistencies? Because I think it was addressed in a couple of questions, so it might be helpful to a few of the members.
Sorry, can you just clarify the question?
So we've said that council officers have identified inconsistencies.
Yep.
With the building heights. Does that mean we're not proposing the 12 stories, or we are?
So the inconsistencies we're referring to are those that we've already adopted a position on in relation to the West Footscray neighbourhood plan,
okay,
and the Seddon neighbourhood plan, right, which are typically 4 to 6 stories.
Thank you. I just wanted for clarification. Thank you for that. Moving on to submission 16. Elizabeth Dugan asks the following questions. 1, will council publish before any decision on a cat curfew a consultation outcomes report that sets out the 2024 survey methods, whether registered cat owners were directly contacted and the number percentage reached via direct contact, including any September 2025 registered owner mail-out results? And I'll go back to you, Mike, again for answering this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, a report on the engagement outcomes from the Domestic Animal Management Plan will be published as an attachment to the council report.
Thank you. And question 2, will council, before adopting mandatory cat desexing from 2026, commit to a funded, accessible program, subsidised low-cost desexing and transport assistance, and publish the timeline, budget and delivery partners so residents with financial mobility barriers can comply? Comparable programs exist in Melton, Brimbank and Wyndham. Back to you, Mike, please.
Yes, the program for the current 68 registered undesexed cats is not yet finalised. However, it's likely to include a subsidised initiative to support residents in complying should it be endorsed.
Thank you. And the third question is, following recent scrutiny of the Lost Dogs Home and the Legislative Council's Animal Shelters motion on 15th of October 2025, will council publish a welfare oversight report for its animal management services, KPIs, audit results, corrective actions, and a timeline for considering alternative service models if standards are not met? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Oversight of Maribyrnong's animal holding facility, operated by the Lost Dogs Home, is provided by the City of Melbourne, as the facility is a registered domestic animal business within their municipality. It is currently operating in compliance with the Domestic Animals Act and its Code of Practice. Maribyrnong City Council takes its obligations under the Domestic Animals Act seriously and is strongly committed to animal welfare. The draft Domestic Animal Management Plan outlines several programs aimed at improving the welfare of pets in our community.
Thank you, Mike. And submission 17, Alison here asks the following questions. Question 1, before the new Domestic Animal Management Plan final version is considered at the November 2025 meeting, will council publish both the outreach completed, i.e. where all registered animal owners are asked to provide feedback, the number of responses and a consultation outcomes report, key themes, counts and a we asked, you said, we did response, explaining how feedback shaped the final draft, on the website, and commit to a delegated committee hearing for discussion? If yes, please state the publication date. If no, please state why not, citing the community engagement policy and public transparency obligations that prevent public or aggregated response and outreach. Back to you, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A summary of the engagement processes will be included in the council report scheduled for consideration at the November 2025 meeting. More than 250 pieces of feedback were received during the consultation period, with key themes including cat management, enforcement, signage and public safety.
Thank you. And second question is, in light of recent reporting and public concern, including past parliamentary motions, motion 1091, 15th October, about euthanasia decisions and welfare oversight at Victorian shelters, will council publish its current policy settings, oversight procedures and welfare information for all council contractor impounded animals, including council custodial animals, and commit to quarterly public oversight reporting on pound welfare, practices together with the assessment criteria used by officers? If yes, please state the publication timeframe. If no, please state why not, citing the relevant policy or statutory constraint. Back to you, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council reports data on animals collected and or held through the Know Your Council website. At this time, there are no plans to expand these reporting settings. Oversight of Maribyrnong's contracted animal holding facility, the Lost Dogs Home, is managed by the City of Melbourne, as the facility operates as a registered domestic animals business within their jurisdiction. The facility is compliant with the Domestic Animals Act Code of Practice.
Thanks, Mike. And question 3, will Council adopt and publish a harm minimisation framework for dog management and guiding policy effectiveness comprising A, park design measures, segregated big, small, off-leash areas, perimeter fencing, lighting with a staged delivery plan, B, quarterly KPI targets and complaint hotspot maps with actions taken and outcomes and the policies guiding them, and C, minimum competency training standards for authorised officers with annual aggregate compliance reporting. If yes, please provide the first publication date and initial sites. If no, please state why not, citing the policy budget basis and the alternative measures councils will use. Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. At this stage, there are no plans to modify the setup of dog off-leash areas or to adopt specific measures raised. However, the animal management team remains open to feedback and suggestions on how animal welfare in Maribyrnong can be improved.
Thanks, Mike. Submission 18. Edward Merrifield asks the following questions. Question 1, did the Deputy Mayor attend a public rally in Footscray CBD where there were signs of defund the police? Would Councillor Thomas like to reply?
Yeah, sure, I will. I think Mr Merrifield has asked versions of this question at least 3 times previously, and I've answered it before. I attended a rally in Footscray CBD called The West Unites Against Racism. Join us for a peaceful community march on Saturday, the 21st of June 2025. All councillors were invited to attend. I think I was the only councillor that decided to go. This rally was jointly sponsored by a number of local community groups, including AfriCause, Justice Action Maribyrnong and Maribyrnong for Palestine, amongst others. So I'm not sure whether there was a defund the police rally in Footscray CBD, but if there was, I certainly wasn't at that one. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Second question is, to the Director of Planning and Environment advised us that there is no additional cost for security patrols in the last meeting. In the August meeting, Council quoted the security patrols at a cost of $100,000. Can he confirm, as per his statement, that this is the final cost and no additional ratepayers' costs have or will be incurred? Can I get you to respond, please, Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. Budget forecasts for the security program remain on track. However, the final cost of the program will only be known at the conclusion of the contract.
Thanks, Mike. And third question is, Council, do you support the community's call for an increased police presence in the mall rather than relying primarily on contracted security guards? The Deputy Mayor stated she had not received any calls for increased police presence. However, again confirmed police have indicated that they are going to increase their foot patrols. The CEO also confirmed she was also not aware of any calls for increased police patrols. Does any councillor do? Councillor Thomas?
I'm happy to answer this one again, which I know it was asked when I was chairing in your absence, Mayor. And I responded to say that I hadn't had any calls from the community for an increased police presence, and reiterate again that when I did meet with the acting inspector at Footscray Station, that he indicated that they were going to increase their foot patrols. Thanks.
Okay. I might just quickly add to that in our mayoral monthly catch-ups with Vic Pol, which has been going on between myself, the CEO, and Director of Planning, every month we did speak to Vic Pol about increasing their presence in the Footscray CBD. So I just would like to add that. Moving on to submission 19. Claire Harrison asks the following questions. Question 1, has consideration been given to how children and teens will be supported with adequate recreational facilities as the Victorian Government plans new 12-storey apartments? Given that the apartment living offers limited space, the VU Stadium is already at capacity and the football ground is fully booked. Back to you, Mike, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Council has not received any detailed information by the state government on what the community infrastructure, including recreational facilities and open space, is required to meet the planned population growth for each proposed activity centre. Given this, council officers have not been able to undertake a detailed assessment on the infrastructure needs for the anticipated population growth and how these required infrastructure will be funded or delivered.
Thank you, Mike. Question 2 is, how does the Council and Victorian Government plan to manage the increased traffic on Barclay Street, which is already congested, given that hundreds of new residents will inevitably bring more cars to the area, including traffic mitigation measures or infrastructure upgrades being considered to prevent further strain on this thoroughfare? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. Council officers consider that further planning and improvements are indeed required to the road network system as a result of the proposed activity centres. Existing roads such as Barclay Street, Ashley Street, Victoria Street and Summerhill Road are narrow and will struggle to support various modes such as vehicles, buses and bikes without significant works and upgrades. Council's officers are also supportive of a shift to more sustainable transport, which includes public transport and cycling. Despite these concerns, Council has not received any supporting reports on road network upgrades and public transport improvements by the state government to address increased traffic and pressures on transport networks arising from the proposed activity centres.
Thanks, Mike. And third question is, will residents be compensated if property values decline due to year-round overshadowing and the dominating impact of high-rise development, given their inevitable negative effects on sunlight, privacy and livability? Back to you, please, Mike.
Unfortunately, property devaluation is neither a valid planning matter nor a consideration that can be taken into account by planning officers or council in its submission to the proposed activity centres.
Thank you. And submission 20 by Madeleine Surley, who asks the following questions. Under clause 1.1.4 of the terms of reference for Council's Special Committee of Council, the Community Recovery Committee, the key deliverable of the CRC included a flood recovery plan. Will Council please provide information on the status and release of this key deliverable? And back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. The Municipal Flood Recovery Plan has been developed in collaboration with the Community Recovery Committee, the CRC. The document is currently awaiting CRC endorsement. Once endorsed, it will be published on the Council website.
Thanks, Mike. And question 2. Council recently installed a permanent public artwork on every single pathway in Colson Garden via Mighty Stories, Mighty Community commemoration of the 3rd anniversary of Maribyrnong floods. MCRA acknowledges some community consultation through the CRC. However, given significant emerging trauma from extent of the artwork and denial of a valuable disaster recovery amenity, would Council disclose full details of its decision to allow the artwork to be installed on all pathways, given the CRC had no decision-making powers or delegated authority under clause 6.4.10 of the terms of reference? Back to you, please, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. The Maribyrnong CRC is an advisory committee. However, Council's approach to recovery has included using community-led approaches to align with the national principles of disaster recovery. The activities within the recovery program were chosen from the top priorities identified at the Maribyrnong Strengths and Opportunities Workshop in August 2023, a public workshop for the community impacted by the Maribyrnong River flood. Workshop priority projects included the public artwork and storytelling project. Further engagement on this project included 55 submissions to online survey and pop-up engagement stand at the 3 community events to seek words, themes to be represented in artwork, community representative on the artist selection panel, and 3 follow-up workshops to consult on form and design, including 2 with the artist. Updates on the project and opportunities to get involved in shaping it were regularly shared in the Recovery newsletter and website. We understand that the artwork has brought up unwanted emotions for a number of community members, and so we are committed to listening to the needs of the community and will take appropriate action based on the outcome of this pulse check.
Thanks, Mike. That concludes public question time. And public question time is now concluding at 7:36 p.m. We'll now move on to confirmation of minutes. Agenda item 6.1, confirmation of minutes, 16 September 2025. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That council confirms the minutes of the council meeting 16th September 2025.
I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote. Is our voting working, or it's by hand? Okay. Yep, the motion is carried. Councillors, there are no reports from committees to be tabled at the meeting, as well as there are no petitions to be tabled at tonight's meeting. We'll move on to officer reports. Agenda item 9.1, local law review, engagement outcomes and draft local law. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you. I'll just move an amended motion to that in the agenda. So the motion is that Council 1 notes the Community Engagement Phase 2 summary shown at Attachment 1 for the proposed Community Amenity Local Law 2025. 2, notes the legal certification for the proposed Community Amenity Local Law 2025 shown at Attachment 3. 3, adopts the Community Amenity Local Law 2025 to commence 17 November 2025 shown at Attachment 2 to replace the General Purposes Local Law 2015 subject to the following amendments. A, preamble, enforcement of local law, paragraph 4. All enforcement actions and the exercise of the authorised officer's discretion will be guided by the principles of natural justice and fairness, with a focus on educating the community, achieving voluntary compliance and fostering community trust. All authorised officers will be trained in line with and act in accordance with the homelessness protocol when engaging with people experiencing homelessness. They will take a human-centred, human rights approach to their interactions with vulnerable members of the community. The Maribyrnong Council Homelessness Protocol can be accessed via the following link, and there'll be a link to the Homelessness Protocol next to that. B, Part 1, Introduction, Clause 7, Application of the Local Law, brackets to include explanatory note below. Explanatory note, Council acknowledges that there are people in the community who are sleeping rough and acknowledges their rights. This clause is not intended to adversely affect individuals experiencing homelessness. The Maribyrnong Homelessness Protocol provides a framework for responding to people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, the provision of information for people to access housing and support, and improving the service coordination, the network of homelessness service providers in the Western region. C, Clause 28, Behaviour on roads and council land, to include explanatory note below. Explanatory note, Council acknowledges that there are people in the community who are sleeping rough and acknowledges their rights. This clause is not intended to adversely affect individuals experiencing homelessness. The Maribyrnong Homelessness Protocol provides a framework for responding to people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness, the provision of information for people to access housing and support, and improving the service coordination, the network of homelessness service providers in the Western region. D, Clause 78, Impounding. 3, if the identity or whereabouts of the owner of a thing impounded under this local law is unknown, the authorised officer must take reasonable steps to ascertain the owner's identity or whereabouts prior to exercising their powers under Clause 79. This includes working with relevant support services and organisations operating to assist people experiencing homelessness. 4, authorises the Chief Executive Officer or their delegate to publish the required statutory notices under the Local Government Act 2020, including the Government Gazette, a local newspaper, and on the Maribyrnong City Council website. 5, maintains the option to consider undertaking an additional review of the local law, if required, after 12 months of implementation, in response to any necessary amendments which may arise from the implementation of the Community Amenity Local Law 2025.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Yung. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'll just say a few things. I guess the first thing to say is that Council's local law is an important legal document, and it assists and supports the community in areas of the use of council land, general amenity issues, safety and waste, amongst other things. Mostly it's issues, of course, that apply in the local community context. It's a bit of a curious document because, as far as I know, it's the only council document that has the kind of legal strength and obligation as laws, as in the same way that laws that are enacted by state and federal government, and that's why it's called the local law. So the review that's been undertaken after 10 years has probably seen a little more attention than usual, I think, and most of the changes are in line that we've seen that the officers have made are in line with community values, and the community engagement process sort of showed that most people were in the main happy with happy with what changes had been made, and I think as a result we have a document that is more clear, and it's also shows a more transparent approach to how council officers enforce these laws. And towards the end of the second round of consultation, a number of issues were raised by the Footscray community response, and we did have those questions earlier, highlighting issues of what maybe I'd call sort of principles or the approach to how the local law is constructed, but also how it's enforced and how it may have the potential to impact on people experiencing homelessness across the city. I think the amendments that I've proposed today will go some way to responding to those issues. I know it won't go all the way to responding to FCR, but I think having additional explanatory notes to guide the behaviour and the use of discretion by council officers, I think does signal to the community that whilst the local law may be able to be applied sort of broadly in circumstances where it may be applied to someone experiencing homelessness or other vulnerable personal circumstances, that officers will be able to follow the homelessness protocol, which will now be linked as part of the local law, and other more operational guidelines that guide their decision-making within the limits of their powers. And of course, if councillors support it, that last part of the motion allows council to sort of consider a review of the local law in 12 months' time. As I guess after a short period, it's a reasonably short period of time, but after having seen how some of these changes might work, and being able to perhaps consider further changes if we feel like they're necessary. So yes, thanks to all those people. It's a bit of a dry document, I know, because I've read it a number of times now. But thanks to people for engaging with this, because I think it's one of those documents that, unless you kind of come into contact with it because you've received an infringement notice or something like that, it's probably one of those where most people don't engage with it or don't really know that it exists. So it was really great to see the interest and I think the level of sophisticated feedback and input that we did receive particularly towards the latter end of the process. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Just formally seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Yangi. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
Yep, I just want to also acknowledge that we received several emails about the inclusion of an anti-idling policy to be incorporated, and I think that it highlights that air quality remains an important issue for our community, and that we must harness any and all opportunities to take positive and proactive steps to ensure better outcomes. I think it's possible to include it in the 12-month review, and in the meantime investigate other instruments and opportunities to mitigate what's basically a completely unnecessary source of noise and air pollution. I also want to acknowledge the feedback we received about protecting vulnerable members of our community, and it's incumbent upon us to be really clear with the community the intent of each of the laws and the substance of the law and the application of them, and to communicate that in a way so that it highlights our commitment to equity and access. So please reach out if you've got any concerns about how they're being implemented. There's always going to be situations and nuance that fall outside what we can capture in a policy, but that doesn't mean that we're not prepared to negotiate in good faith. So if you need more time to put out your hard rubbish, if you're experiencing housing insecurity or overcrowding, if you want to understand your rights or advocate on behalf of other people, just contact Council or one of your elected representatives.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Councillor Semra.
Thanks, Mayor. When we shape local laws, I think it's important to remember the impact on people at their most vulnerable. Homelessness and rough sleeping are not abstract issues. They are daily realities that some, if not many in our community, are experiencing. A human rights-based approach means putting dignity, fairness, and respect at the center of our decisions. It means recognizing that behind every enforcement action is a person, and that person might be experiencing trauma, hardship, and rough sleeping. When it comes to homelessness in particular, we need to be careful that our local laws don't compound these issues and these hardships. Our responsibility is to ensure people are supported, connected to services, and treated with compassion. Compliance and enforcement do have their place, and it's important for me to state that. But they cannot be the only tools that we reach for. A human rights-based approach strengthens trust between council and community, and it positions us as leaders, ensuring that Maribyrnong can grow while still protecting our most vulnerable and balancing safety, amenity, and well-being for the whole community, while never losing sight of the rights and dignity of every individual. By embedding human rights into our approach, we can balance all those things that I just mentioned.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. Any other councillors? I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.2, awarding of contract 1305-25, provision of Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, Waterslide and Splash Park. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Yengi. Read it.
Thanks. That council awards contract number 1305-25, provision of Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, Waterslide and Splash Park to Circon Constructions Proprietary Limited for the total contract sum of $14,813,000 excluding GST. Allocate a provisional sum for this project as set out in confidential attachment 1. Authorises the Chief Executive Officer to execute contract number 1305-25, provision of Maribyrnong Aquatic Centre, Waterslide and Splash Park to Circon Constructions Proprietary Limited, and authorises the Chief Executive Officer to approve variations to this contract in accordance with Council delegations.
Thank you, Councillor Yengi. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Semra. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Nope. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Sure. And I do sort of have a point of clarification that I'd like to ask, but that's okay.
Yes, please. Maybe you'd like to clarify that first.
I will just put it all together and I will throw to the Director of Infrastructure. So first, I just wanted to start off by thanking officers for their tireless work in negotiating and securing this new contractor following the collapse of the previous contractor. And I know everybody here will agree with me when I say this project has been a long time coming and we're very much ready to kickstart construction. I had some questions, and I guess I'm sure there are some residents out there who may share similar concerns to me, which is around, you know, how we're going to ensure that this contractor doesn't go bankrupt like the last one, so we can ensure this project gets completed. That's what I'm going to throw to the Director of Infrastructure through the Mayor, if it's all right.
So are there any other clarifications?
Yes, and just to ask, I suppose, what due diligence we have carried out, and to ensure, you know, that we can hopefully get this project completed on time in the next 2 or 3 years.
That's it. Okay, I'll pass it over to the Director of Infrastructure, Mike, since you've been, Patrick, sorry. Patrick.
Thank you, Councillor, and through Mayor. So whilst you can never fully de-risk a project, projects will always come with some level of risk. I can assure councillors that we have undertaken a whole range of due diligence in re-tendering this project, including further site analysis and understanding of the underground conditions, and we're confident we can continue to deliver it as per the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. And would you like to speak to the motion? Yeah, okay. That's fine. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
I'll say it's definitely a long time coming. This is something our community has been looking forward to. Families and young people have told us they want to see a water slide and splash park, and I'm really pleased that we are moving along in the right direction for that. It's a practical investment that will make the centre more enjoyable, give the kids a safe way to be active, and provide families with another safe space to spend time together. It's about listening to what our residents want, and I'm glad we are making that happen. It also helps ensure our facilities stay modern and competitive with other centres across Melbourne. Most importantly, it shows we're committed to investing in health, well-being and lifestyle of our local community.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
I just want to add my thanks to the staff for their diligent and creative work in developing this new tender process in order to balance the risks and financial obligations, because it was a bit of a tricky one, so I think it took a little bit of extra work. So thank you very much to the team, and I know everyone's going to be really excited to see this happen, and hopefully by then we'll have also have some good cycling access to this site as well for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Any other councillors? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.3, adoption of the Road Management Plan 2025. I'll call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Lamb.
That Council number 1 noted the community engagement outcome, Road Management Plan 2025, engagement summary report shown at attachment 1, and number 2, adopt the Road Management Plan 2025, so at the attachment 2.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yes, very briefly. Firstly, I would like to thank you, the Director Patrick Jess, the Director of Infrastructure and his team. They do a wonderful work. Road management plan is very, very important for the community. So for safety, provide safe for the community when everybody on the road. So I think that's well done, and I'm moved for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Or would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Yengi.
Yeah, just briefly, I just wanted to say thanks to the residents who participated in the community consultations for this item, and just wanted to, I suppose, circle back and just say that Council received 7 submissions for this piece of work, and however 6 of these items weren't relevant to the proposed plan. So for those who did provide their submissions, those 6 that provided it, as it didn't directly relate to this particular plan, but they were relevant for the integrated transport strategy that's currently in development. Your feedback will be considered as part of the ITS strategy, which will also come out to community for input in the very near future.
Thank you, Councillor Yangi. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.4, Circular Economy, Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021, provision of glass recycling service. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council 1 notes the circumstances relating to the curbside glass service as part of the requirements of the Circular Economy, Waste Reduction and Recycling Act 2021. Requests the Chief Executive Officer to delay the implementation of curbside glass services until the service standard is endorsed by the Minister of Environment and Council has sufficient time to consider the impacts. And 3, resolves to join the Inter-Council Advocacy Group in seeking an extension to the implementation of the curbside glass service.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Semra. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things. So people, the community may not know, but the state government had made a decision that by 2027, at the beginning of July, that all councils had to introduce what's called a 4th bin that separated glass into its own bin, taking it out of the yellow lidded mixed recycling bin. But unfortunately, there's a thing called the service standard that the government produces, and that hasn't been finalised by the state government in a timeframe that would actually give all councils that haven't already introduced it enough time to introduce this 4th bin within the timeframe that was set down by the government. A number of councils have joined together into an advocacy group to seek an extension, but also to sort of ask questions of government around the viability and the necessity of the proposal, given that the container deposit scheme, where you can take back your containers and receive a 10%, 10 cents for each container, understanding what impact that is already having on the mixed recycling bins, because a lot of containers are now coming out of that bin and going through the CDS process. So I fully support this recommendation by the officers. I think it's a sensible approach. I think councils collectively need to understand what the evidence base is under this sort of the new circumstances now that we've got the container deposit legislation. Council generally, uses an evidence base for decisions like this, and we certainly need it here because introducing a 4th bin is a costly exercise, and it will have an impact on the community, and especially when people are already sort of really have taken on the CDS with great gusto, and it's great to see that happening. So yes, I support this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And the second would like to speak to the motion.
Yep. Thanks, Mayor. I would agree. I think there's been some underestimated costs, notwithstanding the operational cost associated with rolling this out and the impact that might have on ratepayers, especially in a cost of living crisis. Also, there seems to be no clear data showing that curbside glass separation significantly improves recovery rates or reduces emissions, and with everything associated with obviously getting new bins and the infrastructure needed around that might lead to more emissions. And also, 4 bins takes up a lot of space, so that's hard to say.
Thank you, Councillor Semrau. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? All good. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.5, Nature Strip Landscape Policy and Guidelines Review. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas. I'll call for a councillor to... Oh, sorry, please read out the motion. Yeah.
So I just couldn't see my little screen. That Council 1, note the feedback received from the community on the draft nature strip planting policy and revised nature strip planting guidelines. And 2, adopted the nature strip planting policy shown at attachment 1 to come into effect on the commencement date of the Community Amenity Local Law, 17 October 2025.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
I would. Thank you. I want to probably first start off by thanking the community for their patience on this one. I know that I brought a motion into the chamber that was supported by councillors in August of 2022 to review the nature strip policy, or I think it was used to be called, the landscape, nature strip landscape policy guide and guidelines, I think. So I'm really pleased that we're seeing the end of that process in the chamber tonight. There's been a lot of interest from the community, from people who really value open space, and not just the large parts of open space, but the smaller parts of open space in front of their homes on the nature strip, and who are really wanting to turn them from a little grassy patch that they need to mow every other week into something that can provide amenity to their community, can improve biodiversity in the urban setting. So this is really great that it's tonight it may come into effect. I want to thank the council officers. It's taken them a while to get to this point, but they've worked on it for the last couple of years, which is great. And we've now got a policy that does not require residents to have apply for a permit under the local law. They can, if they comply with what's in the guidelines and in the policy, they can go ahead and refurbish their nature strip in accordance with the guidelines. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some fancy new nature strips popping up across the municipality from tomorrow, basically. So thank you also to members of the Green Guerrilla Gardeners who encouraged me to put in the motion in 2022 as well.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I've been advocating for this for about a decade, and I looked at my emails and I've got them at least going back to 2017. So I think possibly I wasn't particularly patient, but thank you to all the staff and directors for their patience in reading my furious emails about this. They say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago and the second best time is today, but also that society grows great when people plant trees under whose shade they never might sit. Obviously leave the street tree planting to council, but I just wanted to highlight that nature strips are a significant portion of our green and permeable space, and planting them reduces urban heat, it supports biodiversity, improves air quality, and greening reduces crime, it improves mood, it encourages active transport, it supports food security, it looks nice and smells nice, and it makes for more convivial neighbourhoods. So I encourage everyone to get down to Newport Lakes Nursery and grab some plants and rip up your grass before all the bindies come back, and set a challenge to your neighbours to create the greenest street in town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Oh, I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.6, Beevers and Bell Reserves Draft Concept Plan. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Yengi. Read it out. Your mic, please, Councillor Yengi.
That Council endorse the draft Beevers and Bell Reserve concept plans shown at Attachment 1 and Attachment 2 for community engagement, and note that a report including final concept plans will be presented to Council for consideration following the community engagement period.
Thank you, Councillor Yengi. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I'm excited to see these plans going out for community consultation. Kingsville is lacking in green space, and it's great to see further amenity improvements planned for the Kingsville community. To the people who have contributed so far, thank you very much, and please do so again, and please share the consultation opportunity with your neighbours as well. I know there's been some contention around the street closure and the toilet facilities. We will have specific information available about those things, including the experience of similar amenities in other communities in Maribyrnong. So we're really interested to hear your thoughts now that you can see the ideas in the context of the master plan. So keep an eye out for drop-in sessions and share the dates in the survey with all your neighbours, and please also encourage the participation of young people whose voices we don't always hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope. I'll put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote. Motion is carried. Move on to agenda item 9.7, consideration of the Maribyrnong City Council Annual Report 2024-25. Call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Lamb. Please put your mic on, please.
That council, number one, receiving and adopt the Maribyrnong City Council Annual Report 2024-25 in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, shown at Attachment 1. Number two, authorize the Chief Executive Officer to make minor administrative amendment to the Annual Report 2024-25 if required prior to the final publication. And number three, note that the 2024-25 Annual Report will be published on Council's website and make available at the Customer Service Centre at the Footscray Library.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Nope. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yep, thank you. Firstly, I would like to thank you, the Director, Mr. Lucas Gosling, and his acting Director while he's away, Mr. Phil McKells, and all the team. I love that report. I think that's why we well deserve, because every year that we receive an Australian Reporting Award, gold medal for its annual report for the past 9 consecutive year. So that means it shows that we did a great job. That's why it's competition. I think one of the year, the CEO and I, we went there to Sydney and see that how we compete with a number of organizations, not only just Victoria, but other states as well. So you can see that we're spending money wisely and look at a major capital works, including community hub, the MAC, Kinder, Children's Centre, even including public toilets. So that's what everybody looking for one. And the landway, food park, rented, sport facility is all that we very carefully spend the money like that for the community and the residents for benefit of it. So support the motion. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded. Thanks.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope, that's good. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors,
Sorry.
please.
I'll just want to say one or two things.
So, yes, please, Councillor Thomas. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you. the annual report is, you know, it's a really important document because it outlines in often a lot of detail, not everything that happens in council, but pretty much most of the things that have happened over the last 12 months. It outlines where we've spent money, how we've spent it, all the infrastructure, the services, the programs, the money, the support that we provide to the community, the work that we do with the community. And council spends a lot of time doing that, council officers spend a lot of time doing that, and the community spends a lot of time as well across each of those areas. So I do want to, I think there's a lot to be proud of, you know, that we've done collectively in the last 12 months. And, you know, we've moved into this lovely new building, which is now accessible to the community. We've got a beautiful new park out the front, named by the Wurundjeri. We've, you know, upgraded, you know, other facilities. We've provided millions of dollars, I think, or maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of grants out to the community across art and community festivals and other things. We've awarded our Civic awards. You know, we continue our maternal and child health care programs. We fix our roads. We respond to a whole range of you know, literally tens of thousands of community questions and inquiries every year. So thank you to the council officers who do, you know, they do the work on behalf of the council and behalf of the community. Thank you to the community for your putting your trust in the organisation and in the councillor group, for your interest, your engagement, for your participation. And I really do encourage people to have a read of this, because it will give you a really good overview of the happenings over the last 12 months. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Any other councillors? Nope. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.8, Advocacy Plan 2025 to 2028. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Semra.
That Council 1 endorsed the Advocacy Plan 2025-2028 shown at Attachment 1, 2 request to receive a report in July 2026 on advocacy progress and achievements, and 3 continue to monitor and review the priorities in line with state and federal and council directions.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Jungi. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Maribyrnong has grown quickly. In the next few years, our population is set to increase by more than 50%, reaching around 155,000 people. That's a huge shift, and it means our city has to change with it and evolve. But we can't do this on our own. We need real support and investment from both state and federal governments if we're to meet that challenge. What we're putting forward tonight is about making sure our community can grow well, not just grow bigger. People want a city centre in Footscray that feels alive and connected. They want to see mental health and well-being at the forefront. Neighbourhoods where clean air and a healthy environment are the norm. They want to be able to get around easily and sustainably, whether it's to work, to school, or to see family. They want to know they want to learn that we're learning. They want to know that we're learning from the floods and putting things in place to protect homes and businesses. And they want the local facilities they rely on to keep up with demand. This is about planning for the future, but also about looking after people right now. Endorsing these priorities is only the beginning. The real test is how effectively we press for support from higher levels of government. Because without that partnership, the task is too big for us alone. And with it, Maribyrnong can grow, not only larger, but stronger and more resilient. So I'm really excited about the advocacy priorities. I think they are a cross-section of what the community wants to see, and it has been done in a collaborative way, and is a good representation of what we all stand for and what we want to take into the next 2-3 years.
Thank you, Councillor Semra. The second would like to speak to the motion.
Sure, I will just say a couple of things. The advocacy plan has been developed with the community's vision and aspirations. We have taken a lot of feedback. From community, we've had workshops as a council group and had some really robust discussions. And these themes emerged from those discussions in addition to the community's vision and aspirations that were previously outlined. Whilst we have a number of priority initiatives that have been listed, we haven't included everything in this plan, and we have deliberately left it broad so that we have the flexibility to advocate on other items which may pop up as a critical need in the community. I just want to also really thank our team for this undertaking of pulling together all the ideas and the feedback from across various strategies, action items, and for synthesising this information into a concise and easy to read document that not only showcases Maribyrnong's strengths and opportunities for investment, but also highlights the gaps and the areas of greatest need in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Youngie. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Pereira.
I just want to add, this is a very broad document, and as the other councillors have said, it's not a static document. So the way that we describe projects and the things that we prioritise will change over time. So if there are things in here that you have a perspective on, please reach out to us, because we've had lots of feedback to date, and so we want to get the scope right for a lot of these major pieces of work and major projects. Things like Creative West, for example, we want that to deliver timely outcomes to uplift Footscray CBD and our community, and to also ensure that we maintain a sustainable economic position. Similarly, with the sports facilities, we know we need to do the due diligence and make sure we have a cost-appropriate outcome that's place-based and takes an innovative approach to delivering these important amenities for our community. I'm really glad to see that there's advocacy around the strategic cycling corridors, and obviously we can continue to advocate for a truck ban on Williamstown Road, the ventilation stacks, and I'd also like to see us look at the air quality monitoring along the Valloway, for example. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what we can do together with other levels of government to make our city really great.
Thank you, Councillor Pereira. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, I'll put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote.
Yeah, I'm going to speak.
Oh, sorry, I've got Councillor Meredith who wants to say something.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Got
to get to the light faster, guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, the advocacy plan sets a clear strategic direction. I really like the Westgate Tunnel ventilation stack air filters, the air pollution monitoring, Williamstown Road, and mental health and wellbeing, and Footscray CBD revitalisation, Footscray transport interchange, new and increased bus services, and the installation of the traffic lights at Hopkins, Hallenstein Moorland, and Hampstead and Emu. So it's a future-focused document that is flexible, reflects priorities for our growing city, and yeah, I really encourage the partnership of the state government on this one too. It'd be great to see. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Meredith. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.9, review of procurement policy. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Youngie.
That council notes the best practice procurement review in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020 and adopt the procurement policy shown at attachment 1.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. We've got one councillor returning back briefly, so just wait for Councillor Lamb. Yep, we'll just wait for Councillor Lamb to come back.
The vote's been recorded, so I think we can move on.
Still got to wait for Cook's vote. Sorry?
Yeah, and it's carried as well. Oh.
No, she hasn't voted yet. She asked to just go to the bathroom, so we'll just wait for her. I can hear her coming back. Here she comes. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Thank you, Councillor Lam. We just need you to vote on the last vote, if that can be. So I'll just ask all councillors to cast their votes again, please, if that's okay. Or is it just for? There you go. It's just for. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to agenda item 9.10, review of Maribyrnong Council meeting cycle. She didn't. It's not. You might need to. 1 second. One second. Oh. I might, yeah, maybe. I might just do a show of hands. Councillors, please cast your votes. Yep. And the motion has carried. So, agenda item 9.10, review of the Maribyrnong Council meeting cycle. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
Sorry.
It's all right. I
was waiting for something else to happen. No, my apologies. That Council 1, note the review of the Maribyrnong Council meeting cycle. 2, resolve to adopt option 3, effective 1 November 2025. 3, revoke the City Development Delegated Committee instrument of delegation shown at attachment 1. 4, disband the City Development Delegated Committee effective 30 October 2025, and 5, note that the 2026 meeting schedule will be presented to the November 2025 Council meeting for adoption.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
I'll just say a couple of words just so it's clear for those people listening what we're actually voting on tonight. So every month at the moment, Council has a ordinary Council meeting and a meeting of the City Development Delegated Committee, which generally deals with town planning and other sort of associated matters. And what we've been finding probably this year and maybe the last year as well, is that with the changes at the state government level, where they've been taking on more and more town planning matters, Council has had a lot less of those matters to consider, and we have had to cancel a number of these CDDC meetings over the last year and the previous year. So just in recognition, I guess, of that fact, this proposes that we remove the City Development Delegated Committee from the meeting cycle and instead introduce an additional briefing session for councillors. As people can appreciate, we do have a lot of issues and reports, submissions, contracts and things to consider, and so this will give councillors and alongside the executive additional time to consider these. But it will shift those reports that would otherwise be considered at the CDDC meeting to the ordinary council meeting. So they won't be. There'll still be a place for those reports to be considered, and for people who want to who put in an objection or a submission for a town planning issue. They'll still be able to attend the council meeting and address the council like they currently do at the CDDC meeting. So I hope that kind of just makes it clear about what is being proposed tonight.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope. Okay, I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.11, Civic Awards Policy and Civic Awards Judging Panel Terms of Reference. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Lamb, please read out the motion and put your mic on, please.
That council resolved to, number 1, adopt the Civic Award policy shown at attachment 1, and number 2, adopt the Civic Award Judging Panel Advisory Committee term of reference shown at the attachment 2.
Thank you. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Yes, briefly. I think this is a good time to have this review, because we have that 2 award from the Youth Award, going to be the Les Twentyman Youth Leadership Award. So this award seeking acknowledge a young person or a group of young people under the age of 25 who are engaged in an activity or service for the benefit of the Maribyrnong community. And this award was a subject of the council resolution in April 2024. We also have another award, Sarah Carter Gender Equity Award. So this award is seeking to recognize a woman, a group of women who have made a significant impact in promoting and advancing gender equity in the city of Maribyrnong. So this award was a subject of the council resolution on the 18th of March 2025. So there, and also the term of reference, and I support the motion. I think it's great to have that review and support.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. Call for the seconder like to speak to the motion.
Yeah, I just want to thank the team for putting this together and the addition of the Environment and Climate Leadership Award. And I just really encourage everybody in the community to have a think about who you witness in your community doing really amazing things and making a huge contribution to our municipality. Because sadly this effort often goes unnoticed and undervalued, and the Civic Awards is a really nice way to acknowledge all of that work that a lot of people put in our community. So please make sure you nominate them. I think last year we didn't have very many submissions to the Youth Award, for example, so try and find, those people are out there and they're working really hard, so think of them and put them forward for this. Yeah, it's a really nice night and it's a really great initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. Agenda item 9.12, LeadWest Joint Delegated Committee. I'll call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Jungi, please read out with your mic on. Mic on, please. No.
Thank you. That council, in its exercise of the powers conferred by Section 64 of the Local Government Act, sorry, hold on. Yes, Government Act 2020 resolves to continue the Joint Delegated Committee named LeadWest Committee by instrument of delegation pursuant to Section 11 of the Local Government Act 2020, delegates to the committee the powers, duties and functions relevant to the LeadWest Committee, governance arrangements effective upon this resolution and signed by the Council's Chief Executive Officer and the Mayor in accordance with C4 Instrument of Delegation and Schedule as shown at Attachment 1. Determines that the C4 Instrument of Delegation will come into force on 21st of October 2025 and remain in force until Council determines to vary or revoke it. Adopts the LeadWest Joint Delegated Committee Terms of Reference as shown at Attachment 2. Appoints as voting members of the LeadWest Committee one councillor and their proxy from each of the cities of Brimbank, Hobsons Bay, Maribyrnong, Melton and Wyndham as nominated by each of those councils from time to time, provided that a proxy will only be entitled to vote in the absence of the relevant nominated councillor, and the Chief Executive Officer from each of the cities of Brimbank, Hobsons Bay, Maribyrnong, Melton and Wyndham, and the proxy nominated by each Chief Executive Officer from time to time, provided that a proxy will only be entitled to vote in the absence of the relevant Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you, Councillor Yungi. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. We'll move on to agenda item 9.13, review of councillor support and expenses policy. I call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Meredith.
That Council adopt the councillor support and expenses policy shown at Attachment 1.
Thank you. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Semra, would the mover like to speak to the motion? Councillor Meredith, would you like to speak to the motion?
Formally first.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, I will now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote. Just wait a moment. It will, no? Just by hands. We'll have to do a show of hands. Councillors, please cast your votes by hand. Yep, the motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 9.14, Alliance for Gambling Reform Response to Victorian Government Electronic Gaming Machine Trial. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council, in support of the Alliance for Gambling Reform, resolve to 1. Withdraw its support for the State Government's account-based gambling trial due to the lack of mandatory and binding loss limits as a feature of the trial. 2. Continues working with the Alliance for Gambling Reform and urges the State Government to reinstate a mandatory pre-commitment pilot with independent evaluation and a statewide rollout plan alongside complementary harm reduction measures. 3. Advocates to the State Government to recognise Council as an equally important stakeholder as industry, ensuring its involvement in all significant decision-making processes for the trial. 4. Advocates to the State Government for other councils to be included in the trial, particularly those impacted by gambling harm, including other local government areas within the top 10 for gambling losses. And 5. Become a signatory to a joint letter of advocacy to members of Parliament shown at Attachment 1.
Thank you. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just say a couple of things. Councils are one of the leadership councils of the Alliance for Gambling Reform, and we have been for some time. And I think over the last sort of 4 or 5 years, we've made some positive gains in terms of helping our community helping to reduce gambling harm in our community as part of that membership, but also as part of the local government working group on gambling run by the Victorian Local Governance Association. And I think why it's important for our council to stand with other councils who are advocating to the state government and to stand with the Alliance for Gambling Reform is that we need to follow the evidence in terms of what will actually reduce harm from gambling. And in this particular case, what the evidence tells us is that pre-commitment processes have to be mandatory to ensure that they do reduce harm from gambling. And when this was first proposed by government, it did include the mandatory nature of the trial, but for some reason, government went back on that commitment. So Monash, which was one of the councils proposed to the trial, has withdrawn its support and is asking other councils to stand with it in advocating to government to reinstate the mandatory part of the proposal. But it also going a little bit further. Councils haven't been, I guess, included as really important stakeholders in the way that the gambling industry and the clubs and pubs industry have. And we are probably the most important stakeholder because it is people in our communities that are impacted by the harms from gambling. The clubs and the hotels associations take the revenue or take the money that people spend on gambling and make profits and send it to their shareholders or to their members. But we have to support members of our community who have been harmed by gambling, and we know that the harms that do come from gambling are substantial. So I'm really pleased that we are able to, hopefully, if council support it, that we are able to stand with all of those other councils who are advocating to government. We've done a lot of advocacy over the past couple of years ourselves to both state and federal government on a variety of gambling-related issues. And we've encouraged our neighbours, in particular Brimbank, and we've supported some of their advocacy as well in relation to gambling harms in their communities. And just on that fourth part of the recommendation, I think in the western suburbs, I think we have 3 of the top 10 councils where losses are the highest, and Brimbank is certainly up there. Milton and Wyndham are. Fortunately, in inverted commas, I think Maribyrnong, we've moved down that list a little in the last couple of years, but that doesn't mean that people from our community aren't still feeling the harm from gambling losses. Thank you.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Only just to say, I think there's been enough of an explanation there, but just to pass on my thanks to the staff and to the Alliance, but also to Councillor Thomas for all the work to date and the ongoing advocacy around this issue. We know it affects a lot of people, puts a lot of people and families in a lot of stress, and everything that we can do to alleviate that and make it a fairer and safer place to live is really important. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote. The motion is carried. We'll move on to agenda item 9.15, Community Report Cards 2024-2025. I'll call for a councillor to move a motion. Councillor Thomas.
That council note the Community Report Card 2024-25 progress and achievements of the Disability Action Plan shown at Attachment 1, LGBTQIA+ Strategy and Action Plan shown at Attachment 2, Maribyrnong Intercultural Strategy shown at Attachment 3, and Maribyrnong People and Participation Strategy shown at Attachment 4.
Thank you. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira. Are there any questions or points of clarification? No. Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Just to say that this is something, like there's a lot of work in each of these report cards across those sort of 4 issue areas, I guess they are. And I really want to just commend the work that our officers do, but also the work that our community do in supporting the work of council, in providing feedback and input into how we do our work, into the type of work we do under these strategies. And I think also supporting us where, you know, councillors wanted to be a little more adventurous or creative, or, you know, just kind of go that extra mile for people in our community who may need it. Yeah, I think it just, like, if you read through there's 4 great plans there. They'll be up on the website as well. But there's a lot in, again, it's like the annual council annual report. There's a lot in here. There's a lot of great work done by council officers and the community together to support people right across our community.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
And just to add that I think documents like this help demonstrate the breadth and depth of council's work, and that it's nowhere near just roads, rates and rubbish. There's so much more that council does, and yeah, these will just help describe that with a bit more detail.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Okay, I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. Motion is carried. Moving on to agenda item 9.16, Governance Report, September 2025. I call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Lamb. Mic on, please, Mike.
That council, number 1, not the September 2025 governance report, and number 2, endorse the amended Footway Park Master Plan Review Advisory Committee, term of reference shown attachment 1. Number 3, endorses extension of the Footway Park Master Plan Review Advisory Committee member, term of appointment to the 30th of June 2026.
Thank you, Councillor Lam. I call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Meredith, would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your vote. The motion is carried. Moving on to the last agenda item, 9.17. Council Support and Expenses Report, April 2025 to June 2025. I'll call for a councillor to move the motion. Councillor Thomas.
That Council 1 notes the Councillor Support and Expenses Report for the April 2025 to June 2025 period, shown at attachment 1, to be made available via Council's website for the term of Council, and 2, notes the amended totals in the Information and Communications category of the previous Councillor Support and Expenses Report for the reporting period for November 2024 to March 2025.
Thank you. I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Semra. Are there any questions or points of clarification? Would the mover like to speak to the motion?
Formally moved.
Thank you. Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Formally seconded.
Thank you. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Nope. I'll now put the motion to a vote. Councillors, please cast your votes. The motion is carried. We now move on to councillor question time. Councillors, question time. We'll now move on to council question time. Council question time is managed in accordance with council's governance rules. Council question time is limited to 15 minutes unless councillors consent to an extension. Are there any council questions?
I have a comment, if that's okay. It's not a question. I forgot to thank somebody on one of the other reports earlier.
Sure, please.
Sorry.
That's okay. No problems. Go for it.
When I talked about the local laws, I forgot to thank the officers. I think it's been a really long and complex and probably testing process for the council officers who were leading that process. So I did just want to say thank you, because I know that they put in a lot of effort. You know, it's a sort of it's a more of a statutory process, so there's a lot of T's to cross and I's to dot. So I was remiss in saying thank you. So apologies for that, but thank you to the staff.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. And is there any other councillor questions? Councillor Yengi?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I have a question for the Director of Infrastructure. Bear with me, I'm just going to provide a bit of context. So, for context, I've had a few queries from residents regarding on-street parking, particularly where their driveways are being blocked, where residential streets are congested, and or people parking illegally. And additionally, I've had queries from residents who've raised some concerns around parking around VU and in particular the new Footscray Hospital when it opens. So it's my understanding that Council is going to shortly be undertaking a review of its parking policy. So my three-part question is to the Director of Infrastructure. Can you shed some light on what's involved in this process? Will community be invited to provide feedback? And when is the parking review likely to kick off? And when might it be available for community feedback? And I'm happy to repeat all of that again.
Infrastructure, please, if you could respond to that, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Yengi, and through you, Mayor. So as Councillor Yengi did point out, there is a current parking management policy in place which guides our decision-making with parking across the city. It's due for renewal by June 2026. Officers are currently developing a scope for a review of that policy, and we'll be bringing that to Council for consideration before we go out to market. It will likely consider the existing residential parking permit policy and also parking management plans. Whatever the outcome of that new policy or plan, it will align with the updated integrated transport strategy and also take into consideration the new Footscray Hospital development. We hope to be bringing the scope to Council, if not by the end of the year, first thing next year, with the intent to have it completed by June 2026. And so residents will be consulted throughout that process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for that. Are there any other councillor questions? No, that's okay. Councillor question time is now closed. We'll move on to urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No. We'll proceed to the confidential business.
We do have an item.
Okay. So we do have an item which I need a call on the councillor to move a motion to close the meeting to the members of the public in accordance with section 66(5) of the Local Government Act 2020. Councillor Yengi. And I'll call for a councillor to second the motion. Councillor Thomas.
People need to leave the room.
Yeah. So
I think we need to read out the motion to close the public meeting, or don't we need to read that one out? Or not?
I think I don't have that. Just a second.
That Council, in accordance with section 89, item 2G of the Local Government Act 2020, close the meeting to members of the public at 8:49 to consider confidential agenda item 13.1, confidential property matter, as it contains information in relation to private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that relates to trade secrets or, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage.
After,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the motion to close the meeting. So
Yeah.
now, for the public.
Yeah. So now, now I call Councillor to second the motion. Councillor Pereira, I put the motion to a vote. Yep, I declare the motion carried, and the meeting is closed to the public at 8:50 p.m. Good to go. Thank you. Welcome back to the viewers online. I'll now advise that in accordance with the confidential resolution, no part of the report or the council resolution is to be released to the public. I now declare the meeting closed at 8:55 p.m. The meeting is now closed. Thank you.
79.